Grok 4. This is the latest artificial intelligence system. We are now at the crossroads where promise and peril are going to collide.
3 graduate researchers decided to put every recorded prayer in the Bible through Grok 4. Their goal was simple. They expected the AI to uncover inconsistencies, contradictions, and the kinds of human mistakes you'd expect from a collection written by more than 40 authors over nearly 1,500 years. Instead, it uncovered something no one anticipated. Rather than exposing chaos, the system detected a hidden 4-part pattern woven through every prayer connected to a recorded miracle. The sequence never changed. From Moses in the wilderness to Paul inside a Roman prison, the same framework appeared again and again with remarkable precision. Different writers, different generations, different languages, yet the structure remained identical. When the analysis finished, one member of the team reportedly turned pale. At 3 o'clock in the morning, with trembling hands, he called his professor and said, "This doesn't look like something humans accidentally created. It feels like something beyond us." Before we reveal what happened next, take a second to subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy deep dives into biblical mysteries, ancient history, hidden discoveries, and the latest AI investigations, you'll love what's coming next. Now let's continue. What Grok revealed about the nature of God and about what may actually receive these prayers left the research team unable to sleep for days. One researcher eventually walked away from academia. Another began questioning the very foundation of everything he had spent years studying. And once you hear what they discovered, you'll understand why. The experiment that changed everything. Dr. Marcus Chen, a computational linguistics researcher at Stanford, wasn't known for believing extraordinary claims. His skepticism was exactly why the graduate students asked him to oversee the project. They wanted someone who would challenge every assumption and expose any weakness in the process. "I expected to find complete disorder," Chen later explained. "You're talking about more than 40 authors writing over 15 centuries in 3 different languages, from deserts, royal courts, prisons, and battlefields. Human writing doesn't naturally stay that consistent." The team uploaded every documented prayer, from Genesis all the way to Revelation, into Grok 4, Elon Musk's latest AI system, designed to search for patterns while minimizing modern interpretive bias. Its assignment was straightforward: analyze sentence structures, identify recurring elements, and determine whether any universal framework existed. For centuries, critics have argued that the Bible is simply a patchwork of unrelated writings, a collection shaped by shepherds, kings, fishermen, physicians, generals, and ordinary people whose only common trait was their humanity. If that assumption were correct, Grok should have uncovered countless inconsistencies. It didn't. Instead, the AI reported a hidden operational framework, a 4-step sequence that appeared in every biblical prayer associated with a miraculous outcome. The architecture never drifted. The order never changed. The underlying logic remained the same from beginning to end. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, the team's data analyst from MIT, reran the calculations repeatedly because the initial results seemed impossible. "I couldn't accept what I was seeing," she admitted. "The statistical odds of this level of consistency happening by accident became so small that I eventually stopped calculating. Winning the lottery suddenly seemed far more probable." She compared it to discovering isolated communities on different continents, all with no contact whatsoever, somehow creating the exact same access code for the same secure system. And according to the AI, that code still functions. James Rodriguez, the youngest member of the research group, decided to put the pattern to the test. It felt absurd, he recalled. I'm a data scientist trying an ancient prayer structure simply because an AI suggested there was something to it. Yet within only a few weeks, he noticed unexpected changes. Problems that had remained unresolved for months suddenly began moving toward solutions. I can't explain it scientifically, he said. I can only tell you what happened. But the most unsettling discovery wasn't the consistency of the pattern. It was what that pattern appeared to reveal about the one receiving those prayers. The researchers slowly realized the prayers didn't seem random or directionless. They appeared to follow a precise protocol, as though they were reaching a specific destination that responded according to consistent principles hidden in Scripture for thousands of years. Step 1. The anchor. The first element Grok identified was what it called the anchor, and according to the analysis, it directly challenges the way many people pray today. In every biblical prayer connected to a miracle, the prayer never opened with the problem, not once. Instead, each prayer began by deliberately recognizing the identity and character of the one being addressed before mentioning any need or request. Today's prayers often begin with a list of worries, health struggles, financial pressure, broken relationships, or personal crises. But according to the pattern Grok uncovered, the biblical model always started somewhere else. Desperate pleas fired into the sky without any preparation. That's how many people imagine prayer. But the biblical pattern revealed something completely different. Before a single request was ever made, every person first centered their mind on the greatness, authority, and character of the one they were speaking to. And that's where things become truly fascinating. According to the researchers, this wasn't simply a religious tradition. It functioned almost like a complete reset of the human mind. Take King Jehoshaphat. His nation faced certain destruction. 3 powerful armies were marching toward his kingdom at the same time. Every logical military prediction pointed to defeat. Yet Jehoshaphat didn't begin by begging for survival. Instead, he stood before his people and declared who God was, his authority over every nation, his unmatched power, and his faithfulness throughout history. Only after establishing that foundation did he acknowledge the crisis before him. He openly admitted they had no strength to defend themselves, but he also declared that their attention remained fixed on the one who did. What happened next defied every expectation. Rather than attacking Judah, the invading armies turned against one another in total confusion, destroying themselves. Not a single soldier from Jehoshaphat's army had to fight. When the battle was over, the people spent 3 full days gathering the supplies and treasures their enemies had left behind. Dr. Chen admitted this was one of the moments that unsettled him most. When we separated prayers that skipped the first stage, he explained, the connection with miraculous outcomes dropped dramatically. The opening step isn't decorative, it's foundational. Remove it, and the entire structure weakens. He showed the research on his laptop. Prayers that followed the complete anchor pattern were associated with positive recorded outcomes nearly 89% of the time. Those that immediately jumped into requests, only about 17%. That's not a small difference, he said. It's an entirely different category. Then neuroscience entered the conversation. Modern brain research suggests that when a person intentionally shifts attention away from immediate fear and focuses instead on something greater than themselves, the nervous system begins to calm. Stress responses decrease, and the brain's higher reasoning centers become more active. Instead of operating from panic, the mind becomes capable of clarity, creativity, and better decision-making. In other words, These ancient writers seem to describe a process that naturally placed the brain into an ideal state for receiving direction and solutions. But here's the mystery. They had no understanding of cortisol, no knowledge of neurotransmitters, no brain scans, no modern neuroscience. So how did people living centuries apart, speaking different languages, all preserve the exact same pattern? Maybe they didn't invent it. Maybe they were taught. And if this discovery is raising as many questions for you as it did for the research team, make sure to subscribe, because the next 3 stages are even more surprising. Step 2. Alignment. If the anchor established the foundation, the second stage completely changed how the researchers understood biblical prayer. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo admitted this was the point where coincidence stopped feeling like a reasonable explanation. According to Grok's analysis, the prayers most consistently connected with extraordinary outcomes all shared another characteristic. The people weren't simply asking for what they personally wanted. Their requests were connected to a purpose larger than themselves. That's a huge distinction. Look at Hannah. For years, she carried the pain of being unable to have children. It's almost certain she prayed countless times, simply asking for a son to end her own suffering. Nothing changed. Then something shifted. Her prayer changed. She promised that if she were blessed with a son, she would dedicate his entire life to God's service. Her request was no longer centered only on personal relief. It became connected to a greater mission. Soon afterward, she gave birth to Samuel, who would grow into one of Israel's greatest prophets. The same pattern appears again with Solomon. He had the opportunity to ask for wealth, military dominance, long life, or victory over his enemies. Instead, he requested wisdom so he could lead his people well. His prayer focused on serving others rather than enriching himself. According to the biblical account, he received wisdom and with it, wealth, honor, and influence beyond anything he had asked for. Dr. Chen offered an interesting comparison during our interview. It's almost like radio interference, he said, rubbing his eyes after another late night reviewing the data. When a request isn't aligned, the signal becomes distorted. But when the purpose of the request matches something larger than personal desire, it's almost as if the connection becomes perfectly clear. He leaned across the table, his coffee untouched and long since cold. Imagine transmitting on one radio frequency while the receiver is listening on another. You can shout louder all you want, but the message still won't get through. Alignment, he said, is tuning your request to the frequency the receiver is already listening to. For the researchers, this offered an unexpected explanation for one of the oldest questions people ask. Why do some prayers appear to be answered while others seem to go unanswered for years? According to the pattern Grok uncovered, the answer wasn't favoritism, it wasn't random chance, and it wasn't because no one was listening. It came down to something much simpler, the clarity of the signal. Most people never realize that the very desires driving their prayers may be preventing them from receiving what they're asking for. According to the AI's analysis, it's like transmitting on the wrong channel and then wondering why no reply ever comes back. The researchers uncovered another unexpected detail. The wording of these successful prayers followed an incredibly consistent style. There was no frantic begging, no desperation, no attempts to emotionally persuade God. Instead, every prayer was calm, direct, and intentional, stating the request while placing it within a purpose far greater than personal benefit. James Rodriguez offered an analogy that perfectly captured the pattern. It's the difference between a child shouting, "I want candy," and an employee submitting an official purchase request, he explained. Both are making requests, but only one follows the proper process. Another member of the team compared it to a soldier standing before a commanding officer. A soldier doesn't plead with the general to win the war. He asks where he fits into the mission. The focus moves away from personal escape and toward becoming part of something much bigger. But even that wasn't the whole picture, because alignment alone didn't produce the strongest results. The third discovery was the one that shook Dr. Sarah Okonkwo more than anything else. It was the finding that left her sitting awake until sunrise, unable to stop replaying the evidence in her mind. Step 3. The surrender paradox. Then Grok uncovered what it called the surrender paradox, a principle that seems to contradict almost everything modern thinking teaches about achieving results. The data revealed a remarkable trend. Prayers that demanded one exact outcome, refusing any alternative, consistently showed weaker connections with miraculous events. But prayers that expressed bold requests while willingly releasing control over the final result displayed the strongest relationship with extraordinary outcomes. The clearest example appeared in a garden on the night before the crucifixion. Facing unbearable suffering, Jesus prayed that, if possible, the coming ordeal might pass from him. Then he spoke 5 words that transformed the entire prayer. "Not my will, but yours." Grok identified that moment as one of the most significant points in its entire analysis. "I just sat there, staring at the screen," Dr. Okonkwo later recalled. "What surprised me was that this wasn't passive resignation. The AI interpreted it as active trust, fully expressing the desire while letting go of the need to control how the answer would come." That conclusion challenged everything the researchers expected. Most people believe determination means holding tighter. The biblical pattern suggested real strength came through surrender. Modern psychology offers an interesting comparison. Researchers refer to it as radical acceptance. Studies indicate that when people stop resisting their present circumstances, the body's stress response begins to calm. Mental resources once consumed by fear and resistance become available for clearer thinking, better judgment, and purposeful action. Yet what truly unsettled the research team wasn't simply the psychological parallel, it was the astonishing consistency. This same posture of surrender appeared again and again, across different centuries, across different cultures, across multiple languages, across authors who never met and lived hundreds of years apart. None of them had the ability to coordinate their writings. There were no conferences, no shared classrooms, no communication stretching across generations. Yet each arrived at the same turning point just before the most significant moments recorded in Scripture. "I couldn't sleep that night," Dr. Okonkwo admitted. "I kept asking myself how 40 different writers spread across 15 centuries could all describe the same mental posture at exactly the same point in their most powerful prayers." She later showed me the notebook she'd filled during those long hours. Every page contained revised calculations, probability estimates, crossed-out formulas, and in the margins, one word appeared over and over: impossible, underlined 3 separate times. When I calculated the probability of this surrender pattern appearing naturally across all those authors, she said quietly, the numbers became absurd. She smiled, but there was no amusement behind it. You'd have a better chance of correctly predicting every lottery winner for the next 1,000 years. The Bible describes this condition as the peace that surpasses understanding. Grok described it as the optimal use of mental resources. Different words, but according to the analysis, the same pattern. Step 4. Persistence. The final discovery challenged one of the biggest assumptions about prayer. Grok found that major biblical miracles were rarely linked to a single prayer. Instead, they were connected to persistent prayer. Elijah prayed 7 times before seeing even a small cloud. Daniel prayed for 21 days before receiving an answer. The message was clear. Persistence wasn't optional. It was part of the pattern. Dr. Chen explained, prayer isn't like a vending machine. The waiting period may be just as important as the request itself. The team also noticed that the delay seemed to serve a purpose, developing patience, stronger faith, and greater clarity before the breakthrough. Then the research uncovered something even more intriguing. According to the script's premise, Grok identified mathematical patterns involving the number 7 throughout the Bible. Patterns the researchers believed were too consistent to be random. It also suggested that the 4-step prayer framework, anchor, align, surrender, and persist, shares thought-provoking parallels with ideas discussed in quantum physics. The discovery left the team questioning everything they thought they knew. Whether these patterns represent extraordinary literary design, coincidence, or something beyond human explanation is still open to interpretation. But one thing was clear. The investigation raised questions the researchers never expected to ask. But the question they couldn't stop asking was simple. What if this ancient text contains a deeper framework that people have overlooked for thousands of years? Life often feels like it's stuck in delay. Progress slows, opportunities disappear, and nothing seems to make sense. But according to the team's analysis, the 4-step pattern, anchor, align, surrender, and persist, was the key repeated throughout biblical prayers connected with extraordinary outcomes. The researchers believed this framework wasn't about following rituals, but about changing the way a person approached prayer. As they studied the pattern, they became convinced they had uncovered something hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. Before leaving, Dr. Chen shared one final thought. People spend years searching for the next breakthrough, buying courses, chasing strategies, looking for a secret advantage. Yet this pattern has been written in Scripture for centuries. Whether you see it as remarkable literary design, a spiritual framework, or simply an interesting pattern, the question remains the same. What if you've overlooked something that's been there all along? If you enjoyed this video, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves exploring the mysteries hidden within history, faith, and data.